you are in now is called the guard room. It once housed the guards, whose job it was to protect the monarch 24 hours a day. This painting shows the momentous act of the crowning of Karl Johan XIV at his coronation ceremony in Stockholm Cathedral. The year was 1818, and a lot has happened in Sweden up to this particular moment in time. 8 years earlier, the Swedish Parliament had decided something needed to be done about the worrying fact that their aging monarch, King Karl XIII, had no children or potential heirs. A decision was made. Facing relief portraits. On opposite walls in this room, you can see two white relief portraits, like giant coins, of two kings from the House of Bernadotte. They depict the faces of Gustav Adolf VI, the former king of Sweden, and the pillared hall. This is the pillared hall, named for the columns that flank all four walls of the room. It was originally the dining room of King Adolf Fredrik. In early Rococo interiors, symmetry was very important. Each door needed to be mirrored by a window, a mirror, or a door on the other side. The architect here religiously followed this principle. Some of the double doors are even imitation doors, installed in order not to upset the symmetrical structure of the room. Today, the room mainly reflects the neoclassical style of the 1780s, when the interior was modernized by King Gustav III. You will also find two sculptures in this room. These are Venus and Apollino, the adolescent god Apollo. Press A to hear more about the scene painting above. The Victoria Drawing Room. Welcome to the majestic Victoria Drawing Room, named after the Roman goddess of victory, Victoria. A name that can be traced in old drawings of the room under the Swedish name Salen, meaning the Victory Hall. When King Adolf Fredrik and Queen Lovisa Ulrika originally moved into the newly rebuilt palace, this was two rooms, King Adolf Fredrik's antechamber and his audience chamber. The dividing wall was later removed by their son, King Gustav III, who converted it into his Grand Cabinet d'Assemblée, his conversation room. The space is a well-preserved example of a 19th century interior, showing the splendor of 19th century neo-Rococo style. Look at the chandeliers above you, and the carpet on the floor. They are both impressive in size. Octagonal cabinet. You are now in the West Octagonal cabinet, which flanks the beautiful Bernadotte Gallery. On the opposite side, the gallery is flanked by a second similar cabinet, mirroring this space, called the East Octagonal cabinet. In 1754, these two cabinets Oscar II's study. This is the well-preserved study of King Oscar II, the fourth king of the House of Bernadotte. The interior you see here was installed in 1872 and was very typical of the late 19th century. Dark, embroidered fabric, thick curtains, ornaments, stuffed furniture, and family portraits. It is quite different to the unadorned and sometimes minimalist Swedish interior style of the 21st century. The walls are even covered in a papier-mâché wallpaper, which imitates green button-knitted fabric. Huge technological changes. Welcome to the Bernadotte Gallery. Here you will find portraits of almost all the older members of the Bernadotte family. Karl Johan XIV and his family. Welcome to the Bernadotte Gallery. Here you can find portraits of almost all the older members of the Bernadotte family. The portrait you're looking at right now is the perfect starting point for an explanation of the history of the House of Bernadotte and how everybody pictured in this gallery is related. This is a portrait of Crown Prince Carl Johan. Here you see King Oscar I. He was the second monarch of the House of Bernadotte. On the table next to him in the painting are the crowns. You can see Carl Johan Square, which is situated between the Old Town and the area called Slussen on the southern island of Södermalm. Carl Johan XIV was the first... Here in the breakfast chamber, you can still see parts of one of the most costly interiors in the entire palace. In former times, all the wood panels were painted and decorated with gilding on the ornate carved reliefs, earning this chamber the name, the Gilded Room. It was also known as the Communication Room, as it was designed to be a shared space for King Adolf. Josephina. Crown Prince Oscar met Josephina when his parents sent him off on a trip through Europe to find a suitable potential bride for the position of Crown Princess of Sweden. His father, King Carl Johan XIV, had actually made a list for his son of a number of potential princesses, and the young Josephina was among them. And his son. In front of you is King Oscar II, the fourth monarch of the House of Bernadotte. In the background, you can see various items that reflect his love for writing, poetry, and music. You are now in the East Octagonal Cabinet. This was originally the prayer room for the Queen, since you find yourself on her side of the Bernadotte apartments. Jubilee Room. In stark contrast to the Rococo style of the other rooms in the Bernadotte apartments, this room displays a modern 20th century interior. The room was redecorated as a present to celebrate the current king's 25th Jubilee in 1998. It is filled with art, furniture, and decorations by Swedish designers. Ulrika's audience chamber. This is the audience chamber of Queen Lovisa Ulrika. She was the first queen to move into these apartments more than 250 years ago. In the intervening periods, fashions have changed numerous times, and the palace rooms have changed along with them. However, in 1960, the interior of this room was restored to replicate its original 1750s decor. Other interior pieces that had also been preserved. Ulrika's antechamber. An antechamber is a small room leading to a larger main room. Therefore, this space served as the waiting room for the adjoining audience chamber of the Queen. When the room was renovated in the mid-20th century, new blue silk fabric was woven in Venice, based on the beautiful original of the 1750s. On the inner wall, the lower row of gilded framed paintings. to be the dining room of the Queen, but nowadays it is used for medal presentations and meetings of the Advisory Council on Foreign Affairs, in which the King is the chairman. Yes. Also in this room, but they do, and Princess Sophia wrote their wedding cake. This room was meant to be used as one of the two guard rooms in the Bernadotte apartments, as you can see from the helmet decorations on the ceiling. However, as soon as Queen Lovisa Ulrika moved in, she began using it as her outer dining room instead. King Carl XVI and Queen Sylvia. Let us now introduce their Majesties, King Carl Gustav XVI and Queen Sylvia. In 1972, Crown Prince Carl Gustav met Miss Sylvia Renata Sommerlath at the Olympic Games in Munich.
The Order of the Seraphim was instituted in 1748 by King Frederick I of Sweden. The Order of the Sword was instituted in 1748 by King Frederick I. Vestments of the Bishop of the Order from about 1783 used that yearly in investitures and burial ceremony up to 1883. King Carl's uniform as a marshal. Dress of a Knight of the Order of the Polar Star, 1820. Dress of a Knight of the Order of the Sword. Dress of the State Herald in the same cut as the ceremonial dress of the Knight of the Order of the Seraphim from late 1820s.
And that must have party when one of the sisters of the king.
The Hall of State. Up until 1975, the King opened the Parliament every year with a formal ceremony held in the Hall of State. The opening ceremony now takes place in the Parliament building, but the Hall of State is still used in other state occasions. The goddess Juno with a child, Hercules. '17th and 18th century Swedish and German glasses. All Swedish glasses were made at the Kungsholm glassworks in Stockholm, which operated between 1676 to 1850. '18th century European porcelain from Meissen. European production of genuine porcelain started in 1709. The white breakfast service on the top shelf dated from the first decade. During Johann's work, figures are now created to spread the different purpose. Items from the Royal Treasury. Royal crystal is colorless, wholly transparent variant of quartz. Items from the Royal Treasury. The Council Chamber. Cabinet meetings are held in this room 3 or 4 times a year, or whenever the situation demands. During these meetings, the King, who is the chairman, exchanges information with the government on current affairs of state. In addition, the so-called changeover meeting is held when a new government comes to power. The audience chamber. Gustav III used this room for audiences. Originally, however, it was intended to use as state bedchamber for car 6. The throne canopy was originally part of the new beautiful bed of Gustav II. Gustav III's state chamber. In the 1770s, Gustav III enlisted the help to furnish his equivalent room of in the French style. He introduced the style in the room was went about the morning audience. The state bed stood behind the staff, and it was a room for Gustav III died from the wound he received during 1792. The room was originally intended for audience chamber of car 6. Car 6 Gallery. Car 6 Gallery is the most magnificent room of the late Swedish Baroque. When the banquets are being prepared, the long table is laid up to the 170 guests and decorated in the late 18th to early 19th century, Swedish and French silver. The Hall of Mirrors in Versailles was the inspiration of the furnishings in the room, just as the Hall of Mirrors. Each window has corresponding mirror in the opposite wall. The painted and sculpted blindfold of Jacques Funkes and Sophia Magdalena's state bedchamber. This bedchamber was furnished by Jane during the 1770s, at the same time as Gustav III's state bedchamber. The portraits in the bed assets are by Francis. They depict Queen Josephine's parents. The Don Quixote Room. The room derives its name from the woven tapestries which feature scenes from Servant's story of Don Quixote. The tapestries, along with the furniture covers, were woolen at Les Gobelins in Paris in the 1770s and were gifts from Louis XVI to Gustav III in 1784. The White Sea. When banquets are held in Carl's Sixth Gallery, the White Sea is furnished as a large salon with a group of chairs. The king and queen welcome their guests here before the banquet, and after the meal the room is used as a drawing room. The White Sea was originally divided into 2 rooms. The guard room. The helmet decorations in the corners of the ceiling give an indication of the room's original function as a guard room. 4 portraits of members of Bernadotte dynasty hung in the room. The Empire Salon. Duke Frederick Adolph's antechamber is now used as a salon. The room derives its present-day name from the chair and sofas in the Swedish Empire style, made for the household crown prince Oscar and Josephina. The Margarita Room. The room takes name from Crown Prince Margarita, the first consort of Gustav VI Adolf and grandmother of King Carl XVI Gustav. She is artist whose picture hangs in the room. The Inner Salon. The room was redecorated in 1794 in the so-called Pompeian style, inspired by the archaeological finds in Pompeii and Herculaneum. The Inner Bedchamber. The room was originally intended to use by Frederick Adolph's valets. The most noteworthy item currently on display is a painting by the Dutchman Franz Frederick II of the King's attending infant Jesus. The Great Bedchamber. This is a major bedchamber of the Gustav apartments, and the room has the same function today as it did when Prince Frederick Adolf. Colors and the wall panels were carved in red silk. The outdoors are painted by Francius. The Melager Salon. Official gifts and orders of chivalry are exchanged in this room during the state visits. The woven tapestries depicting the tragic classical tale of Prince Melager were woven in Brussels and formed part of Eureka Eleona's jewelry in 1680s.